All right, Pastor Matt Harmless here. For my podcast, I'm going to choose to do something a little bit different. I've tried to do this before on the podcast where I tried to read an audiobook, read a book, and it didn't always work that well. So I think it was because I was trying to be really professional about it and make it into like as if it was an audiobook recording. Now, the book that I'm going to be doing, though, I am going to be reading a book, but not in that manner. The book I'm going to be reading is On the Mortification of Sin by Ch1 Owen. And this book is in the public domain, which means there's no copyright issues where I can put this out publicly. That's kind of how, as far as I know, that's how public domain books work. Particular copy that I have is I got from the Monergism website quite a while ago, and it's in an updated language, and so that's what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to scroll ahead, modernized by this guy. I want to scroll ahead. This book was free on the Monergism website. Mortification of Sin in Believers. Mortification, for those that don't know, is a killing of sin. I'm going to scroll down here. There's all the chapters. I'm going to skip this editor's note. I'm going to go right to chapter 1. And it starts off with this stuff right here. And this is just a outline of what this first chapter is about. So I'm not going to read that. I want to jump right to this particular spot right here and start this chapter off. To provide some direction in order to make the work of mortification in believers clearer. In other words, and this is why I'm reading this, because I think that many of us struggle with knowing how do we kill sin in our lives. Ch1 Owen says, I will lay a foundation on the words of the apostle in Romans 8:13. If you mortify the deeds of the body by the Spirit, you will live. That is a quote from Romans 8:13. If you mortify the deeds of the body, if you kill the deeds of the body by the Spirit, you will live. I will build on this verse to reveal the great evangelical truth and mystery it contains. In verses 1 through 3 of Romans chapter 8, the apostle restates his doctrine of justification by faith and the blessed condition of those who share in it by grace. He proceeds to expand on it to explain the holiness necessary to believers and the comfort that is available to them. Among his arguments and motivations to holiness, the verses mentioned contrast what happens when we choose to sin. In other words, quote again, if you live after the flesh, you will die. What it means to live after the flesh or what it means to die is not my present focus. Even so, I will explain them in the context of Romans 8:13. This will lay a foundation for the ensuing discourse. First, it makes our duty, the means to perform it, and the resulting promise conditional, if you. Second, it identifies the persons to whom it is prescribed, if you mortify. Third, it denies the Spirit as the cause or means of performing this duty, through the Spirit. Fourth, there is a duty prescribed in this verse, mortify the deeds of the body. Fifth, there is a promise annexed to the performing that duty, you will live. Number 1, this duty to mortify sin is conditional, but if you. Conditional, this is interesting to me because in math we used to, back in the day, teach some logic in geometry, and conditional statements were part of that. Conditional, and so he's actually going to lay out, and this is one of the reasons why I love old books, because, man, they required thought. And he's going to think about this conditional, if conditional. He says conditional phrases may specify two things. So number 1, right here, number 1, that it is uncertain that the person to whom the duty is prescribed will realize the event or receive the thing promised. This is true where the condition is absolutely necessary to the event or thing occurring, and the condition itself does not depend on anything else known to that person. So we say, if we live, we will do such a thing. But this uncertainty cannot be the intent of using the conditional phrase in this verse. I say that because verse 1 of the same chapter says there is no condemnation for them. There is no uncertainty in that. Okay, so he's saying this is not, it's uncertain. The condition can also, he says, specify the certainty of the connection between the things spoken of. For example, we can say to a sick man, if you take this medicine, then you will be well. See how that works? If then, right? If you do this, then this will happen. We are expressing the certainty of the connection between the medicine and the health of the patient. This is how it is used here. The certain connection between mortifying the deeds of the body and living. If you mortify, then you live, is what is intimated in this conditional phrase. There are various ways to connect things conditionally. They can either be cause and effect to each other, or the means and the end. So either cause, effect, or means and end. This connection between mortification and life is not cause and effect, for eternal life is the gift of God through Jesus Christ. It is means and the end achieved by it. God has appointed this means for attaining that end, which he has freely promised. Means, though necessary, are subservient to the end of the free promise of life. Providing a gift and requiring the recipient to procure it are inconsistent with each other. The intent of this condition, then, is to make a certain and infallible connection between true mortification and eternal life. If you use this means, you will obtain that end. If you mortify, you will live. In this prescription for life, we find the primary motive to perform the duty. Now, I'm left now with a dilemma. Chapter 1 doesn't take all that long to read, but man, it's packed full, is it not? I think there's a lot to explore here. I think that one of the key important things is, like, when we think about this, it is a means in the end achieved by it. God has appointed this means, like a way of doing something for attaining that end, living. He's freely promised. Means though necessary are subservient to the end of the free promise of life, though, which we think, okay, yeah, that's true, because I thought eternal life was a gift through Jesus Christ. Providing a gift and requiring the recipient to procure it are inconsistent with each other. You see, he's acknowledging that reality. But then he's not leaving it alone. What the text then says. The intent of this condition, then, is to make a certain and infallible connection between true mortification and eternal life. If you use this means, you will obtain that end. If you mortify, you will live. In this prescription for life, we find the primary motive to perform the duty. Ooh, man, I think there's going to be a lot to unpack there. So now I have the question of, do I want to continue on and read all of chapter 1? Try to take in all of this? I mean, it's not that long. Those 5 points. Or do I want to just stop here? I think I may just stop here for this first episode of dealing with this particular book. And I think that I would like to ask God at this point to help us to consume what this means. I think especially when we think about, I think that where he's going with this is what we think of as a means of grace. Grace is a free gift, but there are things that God then gives us as well as a way of procuring that free gift. It's been given to us, but then we are to act in such a way to live that out. This is hard for many to digest or to swallow, because then it stops feeling like a free gift, but that's still what it is. Okay? It's sort of like, I have 2 sons, and when they were young, little, they're both grown now, one of my favorite things to give them was Lego sets. I loved Lego sets when I was a kid. I loved giving them Lego sets. One of the enjoyable parts of the Lego set, in fact, I personally, I think my favorite part of the Lego set was the building of the set. And so you had the initial building of whatever's given to you with the directions, but then for me, my favorite part was less the playing with the Legos later and more the constructing new and creative things with the Legos, right? So if I were to give my sons a Lego set, the gift is free. That they didn't earn it. Especially like say I'm just a random day and I'm going through the store and I go, man, there's a Lego set right there. They don't have that one. I'm going to grab that for them and bring it home. I bring it home and I give it to them. Now there's a means though for their enjoyment of that free gift. The means comes through the giving of I'm sorry, the means comes through the participating in it. So I would tell them now if you want to get something out of this, man, open up the box, right? Open up the plastic, read the directions. These are all things that sound like work, but they're part of the means of experiencing that gift. I think there's a similar thing going on here. There are further means in the enjoyment of Legos, and that is not just building that first one, but then taking apart that first creation that you make and building a new one, and then combining it with the other ones. And some of that, to some people, it feels like, wow, you mean I have to take this thing apart? You mean I have to put this thing together? Well, yeah, but that's all part of it. I think there's a similar thing going on here. Life is a free gift of God, but then He gives us the means for obtaining that eternal life. Even the means are part of the gift, and I think that He's really going to dig into this. I'm going to pause. Like I said, I want to pause again here. I'm going to let this be my first episode of reading, and this will go into the mix with the rest of my podcast, but this will be called Mortification of Sin, episode 1, I guess. I don't know how I'll do this, but I hope it's beneficial to you. If you're listening to it on the podcast, there's also a YouTube video that you can look at and watch this as well from there. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is beneficial, and I hope that you begin endeavoring to mortify sin in your own life in order to obtain life that God has freely given you.